Hi, good morning. It's Monday at 9, which means we're doing our very first Monday Facebook Live. I am Liz. I am the resident boob geek here at Rising Tide Women. And when I say here, I mean in general, because we don't have a real in-person location. This is my home office. So you can see I have like sticky notes everywhere because that's how I do my thinking and my content creation. But yeah, so I'm Liz. I work with Lindsay, who is my amazing partner. She is not as into video, although I'm trying to rope her in. So she is amazing. She does our birth doula support. We both do prenatal education for birth, for breastfeeding, for whatever our clients need. We both do postpartum support, which means we will come to your house and just do what needs to be done to support you. And if that means putting some food in the crock pot for you for later, if that means holding the baby so you can get a nap, if that means helping you with breastfeeding, that's what we do. It's a really wonderful thing. I wish that I had known about it when my kids, who are now 10, were babies. Because I really could have used a postpartum doula. And then I also do breastfeeding support, which is why I'm talking about breastfeeding today. I am I'm an international board certified lactation consultant, an IBCLC. I am also a CLC, a certified lactation counselor. And I have breastfed 3 kids of my own. So I've been through the ringer, I've been there, and I have a lot of education to support the families that we work with. So today I'm going to talk about some of the ways you can hang out with us in person if you want to do that, which I know you do. And I'm also going to talk about some of the questions that I get asked most frequently about breastfeeding, because I get asked a lot of questions and I just want everybody to have that good information, whether they're able to meet with me in person or not. Hi, Lindsay. I was just talking about you. Pardon me. But first I want to share how to meet up with us in person. We have some events coming up that we're really excited about. The first one that's coming up this Saturday, the 3rd, is Cape Cod Moms Parent Resource Fair. It's the first year that she's done this. I actually graduated high school with Amy, who is the organizer, and it's going to be a really cool event. I am extra excited about it because I am actually speaking, and because I am such a nerd, I wanted to give not one but 2 talks. And so I will be talking at 10:30 about finding your village as a new parent, because I feel really passionately about having a community to support you as a new parent. And at 12:20, I will be talking about something we'll touch on briefly here today, but I'll be talking about how to set yourself up for a great breastfeeding experience. So come listen to my talk. It would be great to have some friendly faces in the crowd. And we would just love to meet you if we haven't met you yet. And if we have, we'd love to see you. You can also hang out with me in person on Tuesdays in Eastham. So if you're on the Cape, pardon me, come on out to Eastham and hang out Tuesday mornings at the Eastham Public Library from 10 to 12. So I will be there tomorrow. And it's just such a wonderful, welcoming group of moms. I love these women, and I love hanging out with them on Tuesdays. So, and I think one of them just joined. So hi. So that's how you can hang out with us in person. And now I would love to talk about some of the questions I get asked a lot about breastfeeding. And if you are watching and you want to chime in and you have a question, you can put it in the comments. I'll see it, and I will do my very best to answer it as best I can in a general kind of a way. So the big question I get asked, the number one question is my baby getting enough milk? How do I know how much milk my baby is drinking? How do I know if I'm making enough milk for my baby? That is like the number one question that I think all breastfeeding support people get. And I actually read somewhere that feeling like they're not making enough milk is the number one reason why parents stop breastfeeding, which is actually, it's a little bit sad because sometimes there's this thing in the lactation world that we talk about called perceived low milk supply, where a parent feels like they're not making enough milk, but actually everything is fine. And so that's why, when we see the posts online about, oh, I don't think I'm making enough milk, those of us who work in lactation tend to say, like, go find an IBCLC, go find a lactation consultant who can help you figure out what's really going on. So, but some of the ways you can kind of gauge that at home, if you're concerned or you're just wondering, how do I know if my baby's getting enough milk? In the first week, we really look at, and we look at it all the time. There's really, we look at diapers. That's the big one, because if it's coming out, it must be going in, right? Like if baby's peeing and pooping, they're definitely eating something. So in the first week, they're not going to have quite as many diapers in the first few days because they're not drinking as much, which is normal. And that's what we expect. They don't need a ton in those first few days. So, pardon me, after the first week of life, we really look for 6 to 8 wet diapers a day, and then usually 3 or more stools or dirty diapers per day. After the first week, we want to see them start getting kind of like yellow and seedy. They're really soft. They might be liquidy even. Sometimes I have parents asking if their baby has diarrhea. But for babies who are exclusively breastfed, we kind of don't worry about that. It's not really a thing that happens. So if they're having enough diapers, that is a great sign. After 4 weeks of age or 6 weeks of age, sometimes babies will start dropping off in terms of their number of dirty diapers, and that's totally normal. But really in those first weeks, we want to be seeing 3 or more dirty diapers a day. So that is one measure, is the diapers. And we also look at baby's weight. So if baby is gaining weight well, if they're in a good weight gain pattern, which for the first 3 months of life, or the first 4 months of life, is about 1/2 to 1 ounce per day. And most care providers want to see closer to 1 ounce per day of weight gain. And please, that being said, do not weigh your baby every day, because it's not going to be that kind of linear growth pattern of an ounce per day. Because when you're that little, like a big bowel movement can be several ounces that can throw your weight off. So we want to see that pattern over time. And that's why I actually love when people come to the moms group or the breastfeeding group, because pardon me, we get to see that pattern over time. They're weighing their child every week, and we can keep an eye on that pattern. And sometimes they have like one off week, especially if baby's been sick, and then the next week they'll have a big gain. Or sometimes that pattern starts to drop off, and we know that, okay, it's time to start feeding more frequently, or start thinking about some interventions, some kind of low-level interventions before it gets bad. So that's really the big way. If you want to know if your baby's getting enough milk, look at their diapers, look at their weight, and always, I'm just going to say this probably after every single question, but if you have concerns about your baby, call your care provider. That's what you pay them for. So don't be shy about calling your pediatrician. I know a lot of new parents feel like, oh, am I just being oversensitive? Am I, worrying over nothing? But like, trust me, I'm married to a doctor who serves babies, and they all would rather have you call and have it be nothing than have you not call and have it be something. So get a care provider that you really trust, and then call them. That's what they're there for. So, and then we also kind of look at baby's behavior. So sometimes, and normally if baby's gaining weight well, if the diapers are good, baby is generally pretty content. And this one is tricky because babies sometimes are not content, like it really is personality, and a lot of it is inborn. Babies are happy and chill. Sometimes they might fuss sometimes, and some babies are a little bit higher needs. And I've had babies on both ends of that spectrum. So I know how difficult it can be when you have a baby with higher needs you feel like they want to nurse all the time. But often it's just that they want that comfort. It's not necessarily that they something is wrong or they're starving or whatever. They want to be with their parent, their nursing parent. They want to snuggle, all of that good stuff. So, like I always say, if you're wondering if your baby's getting enough milk, just put them on all the time. Like I always tell parents, it kind of doesn't matter what the question is because the answer is a boob. So you can't over breastfeed a baby. So you don't have to worry about that. So, all right. So that's the first one. That's the big one that I get asked all the time. Another thing that I get asked pretty frequently is, what about breastfeeding when I'm sick? And especially now during cold and flu season. And this year, 2018 is like a particularly scary flu season. I went to shake someone's hand the other day, like to introduce myself in a non-work setting. I was shopping for something. And the woman was like, I don't shake hands this time of year. It kind of jarred me, but I also was like, yeah, that's fair. It's a crazy cold and flu season. So I'm seeing a lot of nervousness among parents this time of year. And like, my mother's an ER nurse, so I'm just going to say, like, wash your hands all the time, and then use a really nice lotion so that you don't get skin breakdown. But just hand washing is the number one thing you can do. But when you're breastfeeding, when you're sick, you want to keep breastfeeding. And if baby is sick, you want to keep breastfeeding. And the big reason for that is that if you are making milk, your body is amazing. Like, you have so many kind of protective mechanisms built in to breastfeeding and chest feeding. So if your baby is nursing, their saliva actually travels up your milk ducts and talks to your immune system. And so any kind of pathogens that they might have in their saliva, your body instantly starts making antibodies to and starts putting them in your milk so that you can provide your baby with the antibodies they need to protect them from the pathogens they've already been exposed to, which is amazing. That's actually one of the reasons why parents tend to instinctively kiss their babies on the forehead. Because we're getting their skin flora, their whole microbiome is getting into our mouth. We're making antibodies, which then go into our milk. So babies tend to get sick less if they continue breastfeeding, even when mom is sick or the nursing parent of any gender is sick, because they're getting those constant antibodies with every meal. So even if you're sick, by the time you get sick, your baby's already been exposed to whatever you have, because most sicknesses are contagious a little bit before we even show symptoms. So your baby's already been exposed. So you want to just keep nursing, which, like I get, is not super fun when you're feeling sick. But, I guess it's better than having to like get up and make bottles if you're not someone who has to do that. So, and if you have like a stomach flu, if you're dehydrated, you may see a dip in your milk supply, but that's another reason to just keep breastfeeding, because that's going to trigger your milk supply to keep going. So, unless you're hospitalized, in which case things may be a little bit different, but, you would defer to your care providers. And again, this is my disclaimer at the end of every single question. If you have concerns about your health, your baby's health, call your care provider. I can help you with the breastfeeding, but I can't help you with the rest. So, but in general, if you have a cold, even the flu, if you're at home, if you're not hospitalized, you want to just keep nursing. There was a big article that came out about the CDC's new recommendations around breastfeeding, and they actually recommended that nursing parents be separated from their nursing babies. They can pump and still give the milk. But if you read it closely, it's actually just in a healthcare inpatient setting. So if you're home, keep nursing. Don't worry about it. So that is another big question, especially this time of year. Sorry, I am, because I don't have like a script when I do these, but I do have sticky notes. So they're all around the edge of my computer. So if I'm pulling them off, that's what I'm doing, is my notes to myself. Like, I answered that one, it's done. Another question that I often get is, how do I increase my milk supply? And more specifically, I get, what do I eat to increase my milk supply? Is there a certain food I'm supposed to eat? And this one, it's a tricky question, because there are some foods that sort of traditionally we think of as milk making foods, you know, oatmeal, barley, things like that. And those are great. Like, if you like those things, eat them. And certain cultures have kind of traditional foods that they eat in the postpartum period, and they're generally just really nourishing, wonderful foods. So, like, yes, do that. Go for it. But because I'm a science geek, I love to think about, like, okay, what does the science tell us? And the reality is that we just don't have any research supporting that any of these foods actually help us make more milk. We don't know if it's because of something, you know, anecdotally, we have a lot of parents who say that this works great for them. They eat oatmeal cookies and they feel like they make more milk. And that's awesome, because it's a great excuse to eat oatmeal cookies. So if you want an oatmeal cookie, like, eat it. Whether you're breastfeeding or not, enjoy the heck out of that cookie. But really, the best and most scientifically backed way we have to increase milk supply is increased breast stimulation, which just means nurse baby more, pump if you need to. You know, people sometimes will do power pumping if they want to boost their supply, if they've been sick, or maybe they got their period back postpartum and they want to boost their supply a little bit. Some parents will experience a drop in supply with getting their period back. So, you know, but really, most babies, if your supply dips and everything is going well, they're going to ask to nurse more. And that's when they have those frequency days, or we think of them as growth spurts. And so they will just want to nurse. And you'll feel like, oh my gosh, like, what is going on today? But really, that's just baby helping you out and increasing your milk supply to what they need. So, you know, so if you're concerned about your supply, go talk to a lactation consultant. Hi, I'm here. You can call me, you can email me. If you're local, I can come to your house and spend an hour to an hour and a half just sitting down with you, making a plan just for you. But really, you want to talk to someone to make sure that, A, you actually have a milk supply that needs increasing. Sometimes we get paranoid about that and we get a little nervous about our supply, even when everything is okay. Like, sometimes I get calls from parents, usually around the 3-month mark, where they're like, oh, suddenly my breasts don't feel as full. And I feel like my milk supply is dwindling. And I kind of love when I can look at the baby and be like, look at this chubby baby, you're fine. But then I also usually explain that somewhere around 3 months, your body down-regulates milk supply a little bit. So it will feel like you have less milk, and you do have less milk. But that's because in the beginning, your body makes tons. Your body's like, I'm not quite sure how much milk to make, so I'm just going to make as much as I can. And then, pardon me, around 3 months, your body sort of says, like, okay, now I have a good handle on how much baby needs, so I'm just going to downregulate and make that much. So that's why that continued breast stimulation is important, is to keep that milk flowing. Let your body know, okay, this is actually how much milk I need you to make. And then it will, if all's going well, it will keep doing that. So that's the big thing. If you want Oreos or oatmeal cookies or ice cream or whatever food is going around on Facebook right now for increasing milk supply, like, have it, but have it because you enjoy it, not because you need a boost in your milk supply. Instead, call an IBCLC. All right. And as always, if you have concerns, I feel like I should be like, say it with me, call your care provider. So those are some of the big ones I get. Another question I often get is about cluster feeding. And if you know what cluster feeding is, you're sitting there right now going, yeah, that is intense. Basically, cluster feeding is just when your baby wants to nurse and nurse and nurse and nurse and nurse for a long period of time. It's really common and it's really normal. I always explain to parents, like, some days you might have a day where you're just super hungry and you just want to eat more that day than you normally would. And that's okay. And your baby has those days too. And they also might have a time of day that is they're more hungry. They also might have a time of day where they're a little bit uncomfortable, or they just want comfort. When you are nursing, when you're breastfeeding or chest feeding, you are giving so much more than just that amazing food. You are also giving them warmth, comfort, love. I mean, you're really meeting a lot of their needs at once. And so they nurse for lots of reasons. Just because your baby wants to nurse frequently doesn't mean that they're starving. It might mean they're thirsty. It might mean they want snuggles. And all of those reasons are valid. They're totally valid. Like I said, you don't need to know why your baby wants to nurse. You just need to put them on. Like I said, doesn't matter what the question is. The answer is a boob. So go for it. But cluster feeds can be challenging as a parent, because you feel like, oh my gosh, it feels like there can't possibly be anything else in there. The baby is cranky. If you're lucky, cluster feeds just mean your baby just wants to stay on there for hours and you can just sit and line up your Netflix queue and chill out. Pardon me, I have this dry cough that I can't get rid of. If you have a baby with a different temperament, it might feel like you need to rock them and bounce them and nurse them and try everything under the sun. And my first two were like that. My partner and I would just be up from 7 p.m. until 1 a.m. just rocking them and bouncing them and trying to get them to chill out, trying to get them to feed. And it was really challenging. So, I want to honor that can be really hard as a parent. And I really wish for all of you that you have a baby who cluster feeds, like my youngest, who would just want to nurse, and he was happy as long as he was on there. So I wish that for all of you. But the biggest thing is just ride it out. As long as everything else looks good, even if you feel like you are just totally empty, like you feel like you have nothing left in there, your body is constantly making more milk, which is good news, because even if you feel like nothing is in there, anytime you put baby on, they're going to get something. They may not get that fast flow that they would prefer, but they're going to get some. So, cluster feeding, just ride it out. They do grow out of it, I promise. Most newborns in that first couple of weeks will cluster feed pretty frequently, often overnight, because newborns are nocturnal. Sorry, it's a bummer, but roll with it. They do eventually sleep more at night and wake up more during the day. And then sometimes on up to 3 months of age or thereabouts, they will have the evening crankies, or arsenic hour, as my great-grandmother used to call it, where they just are cranky in the evenings. And that's a pretty common feeding pattern. So if you're experiencing that, just ride it out. You're doing great. You got this. We're here for you. Come to group. You'll hear about it from the other parents too. Yeah. So that's cluster feeding. It's really normal, but it's a drag. I hear you. And then the last question I want to address is how to prepare for breastfeeding. I get this question all the time from parents who are still pregnant. And they're like, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to, toughen up my nipples? This is the one I hear all the time, where they're like, well, my grandmother told me, or my mother-in-law told me I have to rub my nipples with a face cloth to toughen them up. Or sometimes I've literally heard sandpaper. If you have been told this, that is incorrect. Please do not traumatize your nipples without a good reason. They don't need to be scrubbed for any reason. They don't need to be cleaned, because nipples are amazing and they're pretty self-cleaning. You don't need to wash them with soap. Especially if you're nursing, many babies will reject a breast that's been washed with soap because it leaves that soapy residue and it tastes bad. So you don't need to wash them with soap. You don't need to toughen them up. All you have to do is learn about breastfeeding. That's my biggest thing that I tell people. You don't have to prepare your body in any way. For most of us, the minute you notice you're pregnant, you get that tenderness in your chest area. And that is your body. Your body's like, whoa, we're having a baby. I better get ready for breastfeeding. So just ride that out, wear a supportive bra, whatever keeps you comfortable. But really the biggest thing you can do to prepare for breastfeeding is learn about what's normal. And this is sort of a soapbox issue of mine because we live in a culture where breastfeeding is not yet normal, or not normal anymore, depending on how you look at it. But we are going on 2 generations of women who didn't breastfeed for a million different reasons. And if you choose not to breastfeed, that's your choice. For me, a big part of feminism is supporting women who make choices I personally wouldn't make. But it doesn't matter what choice I would personally make. I'm just here to support you because that's how we do. But, for people who want to breastfeed, we also want them to have that support. So you've got to learn about what's normal because we live in a culture where we think it's normal to rub your nipples with sandpaper before you breastfeed. And that is kind of wild. Like, keep the sandpaper away. It belongs in the garage, not in your bra. So that's my soapbox issue, is just learn about it. And actually, one of the talks that I'm giving this Saturday at the Cape Cod Moms Fair is about how to prepare for a great breastfeeding experience. So you can come and listen to me tell you in more detail about how to prepare for a great breastfeeding experience. And also, we'll have a table there. So come hang out, come say hi. We have so many people that like our Facebook page, that are in our Facebook groups, and I haven't met a lot of you, so it would be really great to see you in person. So that, I think, is it for today. If you want to learn how to work with us, check out our website, risingtidewomen.com. We also have a really amazing group here on Facebook. It's a free community for our Rising Tide Women clients and friends. So whether you have worked with us before or not, you are welcome and invited, and we would love to have you. So we have this great Facebook community. I will link to that in the comments as well. It's called the Rising Tide Women Sisterhood. And I'm going to write that down so I don't forget. The sisterhood group. And we would just love to hear from you. You can join our email list and get our awesome emails. We're finishing up actually this week, a self-love party that we've been doing all of January via email and the Facebook group. So come and join us. We have a great time. We want you to join the party, and we will see you out there in the world. Have a great day.